Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome to the stage founder and board chairman of the Tennessee State Collaborative on Reforming Education, Senator Bill Frist.
Thank you, and what a great morning. I really do want to sincerely say good morning to all of you for what will be a fast-paced next hour and 30 minutes, but one which I love. I want to thank you all for joining us for what is an annual event for us, and that is release of our annual report, the 2023 State of Education in Tennessee report. But in particular, I want to thank all of you in the room today and the organizations and the entities that all of you represent. I want to thank the policy leaders, the educators, the students, the parents, and all of you who are in the room for joining us today to be a part of this really important conversation. That's what we'll have this morning, is a conversation about how to advance this big picture of policies and practices and where we invest, all to improve student outcomes now and in the year to come. So on behalf of our family, our SCORE family, I want to thank all of you for your leadership and your partnership. And the partnership is so fundamental to what we do in this critical work. Tennessee has been on this trajectory, this journey for the past 15 years to advance student achievement in both K through 12 and higher education. And we have held this event, the exactly release of our annual report in this year, the State of Education in Tennessee report of this year, since 2009. And it is a journey, and it's a journey that you've been part of, and one that we perpetuate today, that we add to, and we add proposals to, suggestions to advance the work. But it's a journey that we are on. It was, and several of you are from the General Assembly and represent that important body in advancing this work. And it was more than a decade ago that the General Assembly took really broad steps, visionary steps in many ways, to chart students on a path to success. And they did it by rising expectations for students and holding schools and districts accountable for supporting students to reach those higher standards, the expectations, and it was visionary in many ways. In higher education, we put Tennessee on the map by creating a funding formula that emphasizes student outcomes, not just enrollment for our colleges and universities. We also created a scholarship, as you know, that covers tuition and fees for all high school graduates to attend community and technical colleges, known as Tennessee Promise. And we've had so many other, and I could go on, so many other successes for students along the way, including, I should add, this past year, as we reimagine, and it was a reimagination in discussions with all of you, of our K through 12 funding formula, building on a very strong policy foundation to see really unprecedented improvements in student achievement and post-secondary attainment. Despite all this really good news, and so many of you have been on this whole journey along the way, and despite this progress, we know that the pandemic, this unexpected, unprecedented, a word that's way overused, pandemic, literally wreaked havoc across communities in our state, shutting down schools and colleges for months. Students in our K through 12 schools, we all know, and it's been sad, it's been tough, but lost significant learning time, impacting much of the progress that we had been making in the years before. The number of students pursuing post-secondary education after high school has plummeted. So now we find ourselves right now in this period of recovery from this chaos and from this havoc that has been thrust upon us in so many ways in education by the pandemic. Students have made up learning in some areas, and post-secondary completion rates have held steady. But if we look at the students who need the most support, they continue to fall behind. And the number of high school graduates immediately enrolling in college has reached sadly, a new low. Today, just 1 in 2 Tennessee high school graduates will enroll in college after graduating high school. Just 1 in 2. When we zoom out and go to 30,000 feet and look at the number of high school graduates who successfully enroll in and graduate college, the number is even more concerning. For every 100 Tennessee students who begin high school, only 16 of those will graduate from a college or university on time. For every 100 students in Tennessee who begin high school, just 16 of those will graduate from a college or university on time. So this is all happening within this context of really exciting dynamic growth of jobs in Tennessee and activity in Tennessee and the economy in Tennessee that we know. But currently there are 400,000 job openings in Tennessee, 400,000 open right now, and new businesses continue to open across the state. And they're looking for employees, and they're looking for well-trained, appropriately educated employees. But we do not yet have the talent to meet this demand. It's a simple talent gap. It's clear. The challenge, the problem is crystal clear. It's a talent gap. The demand is there. The people who are appropriately trained are not. While most jobs require some type of post-secondary training, less than half of Tennesseans have a degree or credential. It's a talent gap, and this talent gap creates a real sense of urgency for us because the problem is so clear. We need to share. We're defining the problem. We need the data to define the problem. The problem is there. We need to fill that gap. We must prepare today's students for today's workforce needs. You know, we've come so far, but we've not done enough to make sure that every student succeeds from the very first time they set foot in the classroom to the first time they set foot in the workplace. Tennessee has taken bold steps to improve student success and workforce opportunity over the years, but we really have so much more to do. To be successful in careers and to contribute to Tennessee's economic boom, students need to have the tools. They need to have the resources. They need to have the knowledge to be able to succeed on the job. Yet not enough of our policies and investments have focused on this connection between education and work. As we near 2023, I sort of want to stand before you and really challenge each and every policymaker. And you see this, how the policy is so fundamental, so important to framing both what the problem is, but in responding to the problem. And so the challenge is that every policymaker here and that we can reach, and every practitioner both here and that we can reach, take time to reimagine, literally reimagine this education to work pathway. Put a focus there and open your mind to think of solutions, think of resources that are needed. You know, just think, and just in this reimagination process, you almost want to close your eyes and just think, what if we could redesign how our schools and our colleges and our industry worked together as one, everyone at the table, focused on that one problem. Consider the K-12 to workforce pathway in Tennessee. High schools today will offer students college and career opportunities early to prepare them for success beyond graduation. But, and it's a big but, not enough of these courses or credentials are aligned to what the employer actually needs. In fact, one study found that most of the industry credentials earned by students in high school had no employer demand. Just, again, imagine a Tennessee where our state policies and the resources and the investments in education were informed by real-world data. The information, the hardcore facts of what that data is. The data that is not just data generated, but what the world needs, what the business actually needs. And then we would be able to actually target that every student graduates with a high school diploma plus workforce relevant learning, or even a workforce aligned credential. Consider the higher education to workforce pathway. Research shows that Tennesseans with post-secondary training earn more on average than Tennesseans with a high school diploma. Still, less than half of citizens in this state have a post-secondary credential when most jobs require one. What if we were able to use data to see the employment outcomes of students so that students and families could make the best education decision for their future at that critical juncture between high school and college? What if our policies held the higher education system more accountable for students earning degrees and degrees that have value in the workforce, in the workplace? This reimagination process is exciting. We do it with you and with SCORE and within SCORE and with our own family all the time. And now is the time to make it come alive. Reimagination, while exciting, also creates, though, an element of hesitation or uncertainty. Without the information, the timely information, the accurate information on the state of education, and thus our report and our concentration on things like this report, and the state of the workforce in Tennessee, and we do need to work on getting more information from the workforce to make this connection between education and work. But without it, establishing this connection, the reimagination process will be impossible, or virtually impossible. We have to have the data. We must look at what we know, and then we also need to recognize what we don't. And then to get what we don't, so that we will know more to make that connection between education and the workplace. And we need that to chart a stronger path forward and to provide every student with that opportunity, that fundamental opportunity that is so much at the heart of what we do, and that is for that student to succeed and reach economic independence. As we begin our program today and dig into the state of education in Tennessee, I just want to close by once again thanking you each for being a part of this important, this fundamental, this critical work that we are doing with you at SCORE. I personally, who have been on this journey with you for almost a decade and a half, and all of us at SCORE are eternally grateful for the contributions that each of you in this room, and what you represent by being here, make every day to do that thing that we all rally behind, and that is to see students learn and to grow and to thrive from classroom to career. Thank you all for being here today. Appreciate it.
And now, please welcome President and CEO of SCORE, David Mansouri.
Thank you so much, Senator Frist, for those words. Thank you all so much for being here with us today. Really grateful to have you here. I also want to say thanks to so many leaders who are with us in this room. We have higher education leaders with us, K-12 leaders with us, folks in the business community, philanthropy, educators, parents. Also very grateful to have many members of the General Assembly with us today. I know we have in the room Leader Lamberth, Leader Johnson, Chairman Sapicki, Representative Slater, and I know others, and just very grateful to have you with us this morning. So as you all know, and as Senator Frist mentioned, SCORE has released a State of Education in Tennessee report every year for the last 13 years, every year since our founding in 2009. And this report really seeks to serve three key purposes. One, we want to provide really a progress check on how well we are serving students in K-12 education and in higher education in Tennessee. Second, we want to identify how our education system is or is not working to improve student outcomes based on data and based on research. And third, we want to make concrete policy and practice recommendations for Tennessee to consider in the year ahead. So this year, as Senator Frist mentioned, SCORE is specifically focusing on the connection between learning and work, and really sounding the alarm on how we can and must do better in strengthening the connection between these two critical areas. As Senator Frist mentioned, Tennessee has taken bold steps to improving student achievement in both K-12 and in higher education over the years, including with some really bold changes in things like school funding, early grades literacy, in just the last 2 years in particular. But it's our belief that these reforms can be strengthened and made more impactful by forging a stronger and bolder connection between education and work, and really having an aspiration, ultimately, that every Tennessee student is well prepared for college, career, and work. So as we look to 2023, SCORE is calling on policymakers, on educators, business leaders, and communities to really reimagine this pathway between education and work. And it's time for schools, for colleges, for industry to work together comprehensively so that every student is ready for a job when they enter the workplace. We really fundamentally believe that we have to enact policies that will support student success across every point on the pipeline from the early grades to career, and that's why SCORE is focused on three priorities in the year ahead. First, we have to advance high-quality instruction for every student in K-12 education. Second, we have to address Tennessee's college-going decline with urgency as students transition between K-12 and post-secondary education. And third, we have to prepare all Tennessee students for work. So as we do every year as part of this report release, we're going to dig a little bit deeper into these priorities, but first we'll look at some of the data that leads us to believe that these are some of the critical priorities for our work in the year ahead. So the COVID-19 pandemic had a substantial impact on student learning in Tennessee, with student achievement gains that were made between 2017 and 2021 being largely erased in our state. In 2022, however, our state student assessment data shows promising signs of recovery. Overall, student achievement improved in English language arts to a rate higher than the pre-pandemic level, and math scores improved about half of that lost learning during that same time frame. Third grade Black students, for example, in Tennessee have fully recovered lost learning in English language arts and have narrowed achievement gaps. And while we have much more work to do to improve student achievement overall, these are promising signs of improvement, and we know that educators and parents are doing really important work to help students get back on track. I just want to note in particular that our state has made bold decisions to prioritize strengthening the way we teach reading, expanding things like high-dosage tutoring to students across Tennessee, and significantly increasing the amount of funding provided to economically disadvantaged students in our highest need schools. These are setting our students up for success in recovering from this lost learning. That being said, a deeper dive shows that while progress has improved overall, a greater number of Tennessee students are not scoring proficiently in critical subject areas such as English language arts, and the number of students scoring in the lowest performance category has also continued to grow. High-quality teaching and learning in K-12 classrooms must remain a focus for our state as we continue to ramp up recovery efforts and move the needle for students beyond the impacts of the pandemic. As we've said before, we're in about the third inning of our work to recover from the impacts of the pandemic on learning. In higher education, completion rates for community colleges and universities have held steady over the last few years. We've taken legislative action to support students enrolling in dual enrollment in high-wage, high-demand fields, as well as fully funding the outcomes-based funding formula to incentivize persistence and completion at our colleges and universities. We've increased the value of the Hope Scholarship to support students accessing college too, and these are policy decisions that are really putting Tennessee on a path to stronger post-secondary success and workforce readiness. But at the same time, the number of high school graduates in Tennessee who are immediately enrolling in college has been on the decline prior to the COVID-19 pandemic and has only worsened in the last 2 years. As Senator Frist shared earlier, just 1 in 2 students graduating high school in Tennessee will enroll in a TCAT community college or university following high school graduation. These rates are even lower at our community colleges, where just 1/4 of students are graduating on time, and even fewer students of color and lower income students. This is deeply concerning, and SCORE believes that higher education and our higher education partners, in collaboration with all of us in this room, have to do more to support students to complete college and complete college ready for work. So this data overall is not just concerning sort of in a vacuum, but it's concerning because most jobs in our state are requiring some kind of post-secondary credential or degree. And we also know that post-secondary training pays off more for Tennesseans on a number of different metrics in the long run. For example, data shows that the earning gap between college-educated workers and high school-educated workers widens over the course of their career, making the case for why some type of post-secondary training continues to matter for students today. Finally, when we zoom out and look at the education system as a whole, it's clear that the education to work pipeline is not working as it should. Every year, 100 students begin high school in Tennessee. 89 of those students will graduate high school. Just 47 of those students will enroll in post-secondary education. 32 of those 47 will return for a second year. And 16 of those 32 will actually graduate in 6 years. So this final number, while already concerning, is actually 1/3 less than the number of students who were succeeding prior to the pandemic. Something is not working as it should for students from high school to career. So I think it's on all of us to do better and to chart a path forward. So I want to share our 2023 policy agenda and practice recommendations with you to paint a picture of how we believe Tennessee can take steps to do better for students now. So our first priority is centered on advancing high-quality K-12 instruction for every student. Students have seen promising progress after the pandemic, as I shared earlier, but we have to prioritize high-quality instruction for the students who need the most support so that every student is prepared to succeed in post-secondary education and the workplace. High-quality instruction begins with a high-quality teacher. So Tennessee must grow the teacher pipeline in order to advance this priority. SCORE is recommending building on the state's strong work in this space by reducing the cost to becoming a teacher in Tennessee through creating a scholarship that incentivizes individuals to enter in and remain in the teacher pipeline in the state, as well as collect and report better data about the state of the teacher workforce in Tennessee. We also believe Tennessee can consider additional criteria for educators renewing or advancing a teacher license to support teacher retention statewide. We also have to ramp up effective instruction, strengthening our learning and our data collection around academic interventions like high-dosage tutoring, summer experiences, response to intervention, and providing more funding and support for school districts to implement high-dosage tutoring aligned to research around best-in-class tutoring design, and continuing to support high-quality literacy instruction in the earliest grades. In addition to classroom instruction and teachers, we also know that high-quality public charter schools in our state are providing an innovative school model for students and families, and particularly for our highest need students in our state's urban areas. Tennessee must protect and bolster support for the state's foundational charter policies, including maintaining funding for charter schools in the state's new K-12 funding formula, and holding a high bar for charter quality in the operators that open across the state. Charter schools that are approved in Tennessee should have clear access to vacant and underutilized properties, and charter authorizer pathways should be strengthened so that high-quality charter applicants can open schools in a timely manner to serve our highest need students. SCORE's second priority is centered on addressing Tennessee's college-going decline with a real sense of urgency. Tennessee's college-going rate has dipped significantly, but SCORE's focused on 3 areas here to work against this decline and help students across post-secondary options so that they can be prepared for a career after high school. So first, we think a refocus on post-secondary preparation is needed to build skills for students early and build momentum for further education. We have opportunity to strengthen, as an example, the state's Ready Graduate measure, which holds high schools accountable for preparing students for opportunities after graduation, and have that measure, among other changes, include industry credentials that actually prepare students to meet workforce needs. This work should also include revisiting Tennessee's strategy for early post-secondary opportunities that provide college and career courses to high school students like dual enrollment and advanced placement. Second, we should also support students as they transition from high school into college. Summer bridge programs have been one proven way to keep students from falling through the cracks, but these programs should be expanded more broadly with a focus on preparing students for post-secondary coursework in the summer right after high school. The importance of advisors who are working with students as they navigate this transition between high school and college cannot be understated, and we need more advisors in our schools working with students. And then third, we need to strengthen post-secondary access for students. Too few Tennessee students are aware of all of the financial aid opportunities that are available to them, and we should work to make sure scholarship opportunities such as Tennessee Promise are designed to support students in accessing and succeeding in college. And then our third and final priority area is focused on preparing all students for work. SCORE believes that education is the foundation of workforce readiness, and we can do more, as one national expert has said, to blur our education and workforce systems for students. So first, we're recommending building towards the future of work using data. The state has a data system that connects education and workforce data, but that data system is not readily available to policymakers, employers, families, and students to see, or for example, to understand how taking a specific course in high school benefits a student when they begin their career. We recommend building a stronger governance system for how we use that data, focused on strengthening and preparing for the future of work, that uses data to better align education and workforce systems and make this data accessible to the public. Second, our community colleges should reimagine the way credentials are offered to align to workforce need. Too many students are entering into programs with little to no workforce demand and are not completing those degrees. So SCORE's recommending, in partnership with many of the leaders in this room, an overhaul of the way business is done, redesigning many of those degree programs to align to workforce needs at the regional and local level through shorter-term training opportunities and more workforce-aligned options earlier for students. And then finally, it's time to hold higher education accountable for student completion in a meaningful way. We need a new statewide goal for increasing the number of folks with high-quality post-secondary training. Tennessee has a funding formula that rewards colleges and universities based on how well they complete students, but we're recommending re-examining that formula to more strongly align to workforce demand, as other states like Texas are currently considering. We also need to put resources and funds to research-backed strategies that are focused on completion to solve the completion challenge that has long plagued our higher education system in Tennessee. So this is a lot of important work. The future of every Tennessee student is dependent on having a clear vision to get it right. It's time to buckle down, look at the data, and work together to put every student on a stronger path from K-12 to post-secondary and career, building on the strong education and economic foundation that Tennessee is fortunate to have. So to put these policies into action and really help us understand how these ideas may play out in schools, districts, communities, post-secondary institutions across our state, we're really excited to welcome a team and a group of leaders to share their thoughts. I'm happy to introduce to you all the Honorable Alberto Gonzalez, Dean and Doyle Rogers, Professor of Law at Belmont University, and a member of our SCORE board, who will moderate this discussion and introduce our panelists. Thanks so much.
Well, good morning, everyone. Listening to this, Senator Frist and David, it is so true. Education lifts people out of poverty. Education lifted me out of poverty. And so the work that you're doing across the state is so vitally important. And we're going to continue our discussion today about what more we can do to help our students. With our state's workforce demand continuing to grow and change, it becomes increasingly important to talk what policies and practices we must employ, what's working, what's not working. So we've got a pretty good panel this morning to talk about it. Please join me first in welcoming Dr. Clint Satterfield. He's Director of Schools, Truesdale County Schools. Yabsera Yosef, a student from STEM Prep. Dr. Rita Summers, President of TCAP Dixon. And finally, Representative William Lambert from District 44 and House Majority Leader in the Tennessee House of Representatives. So I'm going to begin with a question for all of our panelists, beginning with you, Leader Lambert. Tennessee finds itself in a pivotal moment today as we recover from COVID. We face a college-going decline, as we just heard, and experience continued economic growth of the state. So what's the one thing that you see as a barrier for students moving from education into a career?
So thank you all for being here today, and I deeply appreciate the work of SCORE. If you're here today, you care about our kids and our young adults that are entering into the workforce, and for those that are continuing through that path. And that really is the biggest barrier that I see. So just yesterday, I drove down to TCAT Oneida, and our TCATs do a wonderful job of churning out workforce-ready individuals. I've got a nephew that was actually graduating from the class there, and they asked me to come address the graduation. These are young men and young ladies that are going to be climbing power poles. They're going to be keeping these lights and all this stuff running. And you don't really think about it when you walk into a room and you flick the switch on the lights at your house or office, that in a millisecond, that power course is through there. All the folks that are graduating from that program make that happen. Here's what I'll tell you about that. I went pro when it came to college. I was a first-generation college student. I went to 5 years at the University of Tennessee, Knoxville. I loved it there. I had to either graduate or go to graduate school. That's what they told me, okay? So I went to law school, went to William & Mary, the oldest law school in the nation, racked up about $125,000 in student loan debt. That's mine to pay back, and I'm doing so. And got out, and one of my first jobs out of law school was as an assistant district attorney, trying to keep our community safe. It was hammered into me in law school. You want to really make a difference in your community, and I thought there was no better job to be able to do so. You know what I made first year out? $37,500. Now, my nephew, who came out of high school just this year and went into a 6-month program at one of our TCATs to be a lineman, begins a new job either today or tomorrow. Guess what he's making? $75,000 a year, with a significant upside on that and zero college debt. Here's the biggest barrier that I see. For the better part of 30 years, we've convinced these kids that college looks like one thing, a 4-year college route, which I notice we're measuring in 6 years on college completion now, so maybe we should call that a 6-year college degree. We've got to change that. Every one of these children that are coming out of high school and every single adult has a different entry point into the educational system and a different exit point, so that the goal is to get them the best job and career that they can get And then when they've got it, it doesn't stop there. That it truly is a lifetime of learning opportunities through our TCATs, our community colleges, and our four-year institutions to make sure that there's not a hard start and a hard stop on that. That's the biggest thing that I see out there that is a barrier right now, is we've all gotten kind of hardwired to think this is the pathway. That is such a myriad different amount of pathways that we've got to make sure all of our young folks and older folks alike understand that.
Thank you. Dr. Summers?
Yes, and also I'd like to say thank you to SCORE for this opportunity. You know, as I think about the young people coming up, and I think about my own children, and you know, the first thing we ask when they're in kindergarten is, what do you want to be when you grow up? Nobody's asking the question, what jobs are going to be available when you grow up? So they grow up thinking they want to be in a particular profession that they're aware of, that looks fun to them, that they're going to enjoy it. But nobody's really talking to them about that return on their investment. They're not talking to them about where they're going and whether or not it's a job, which many want to do right now because they see $15, $16 an hour in some of these low-level positions versus a career. So you have to invest in yourself to do that. And, you know, when I think about supply and demand, the jobs that are out there, we have to help the students see what jobs exist. My son, when he was graduating high school, I said, okay, you have to go to school. You have to go somewhere. He didn't know what he wanted to do. I brought him to the TCAT and walked him through, and when he got into the machine tool program, he went, I love that smell. Right? So he didn't know what a machinist was. If I said to him that morning, do you want to go into machine tool technology, he would not have thought anything about it. He knew when he saw it, he felt it when he walked in and smelled it. I think our students need to see what's out there. We need to do a better job of helping them understand that there's more than jobs in gaming or some other fun career.
Thank you. Ms. Yosef?
Thanks for this opportunity, everyone. And going off of similarly what you said, I think that a barrier is that because of COVID, many students had entered the workforce and got exposed to earning income. And I think that because of that, many students lost the importance of enhancing their education, essentially, and going into college, because normally you're taught going to college and then that's when you earn more money. And it's like, I didn't need college to get this money, so why do I have to go to college now? And many students have lost sight of that, and it's like, I got the money without getting that further education, so why would I go? And now many students don't know the opportunities that are available to them because they're like, I have the money. And I think that many companies and organizations, especially during COVID, use this time to essentially get these students into the workforce and don't realize how much that is essentially harming these students' education and their futures, because they won't be getting that further education. And in return, will be harming these companies, because in the future, when the company wants to grow, many of these students, when they're in the workforce, will not have these high credentials that these companies want, and without getting that further education, they won't be able to propel the companies to grow. And I think that companies have essentially been a barrier when students are more likely to join the workforce early on.
Thank you. Dr. Satterfield?
Well, I thought all those were great answers, and I had some answers, and I said, well, I better change that because I've already I think everybody's right on spot. I think one other thing I'd like to add is, picking up from Dr. Summers, is the counseling piece of our students at multiple levels, starting in elementary school, middle school, high school, and then bridging that counseling into our post-secondary opportunities as well. I'll give you an example. When I was a kid, I grew up, my teenage years was around about the time that Apollo was landing on the moon. And I wanted to be an astronaut, and I'm a small statured guy, you know, so they could get me in the capsule, you know. And I'm kind of athletic, you know, you could spin me around and I'd come back on my feet and that type of thing. But if you watched Apollo 13, when their power went out and they no longer had this thing, and you can turn it over and it'll make a scientific calculator too. And when they had to project their own burn using a slide rule, that's when old Clint would have been lost in space. So what I'm saying is that this counseling too much, we have counseled our students is, what do you want to be? What are your interests? And we have counseled students based off their interest and told them they could be anything that they want to be. That's good. But we're doing a poor job of matching their interest with their aptitudes about what they can be so they can get a good paying, sustainable job over a part of a lifetime. So that's the only segue that I would add to what these panelists have said already this morning.
Any astronauts in the room? Guess not. Leader Lambert, you've championed increases to the Hope Scholarship for students and extending access to dual enrollment at TCATS. Why do you believe it is important for students and for the state as a whole that we improve access to college?
Yeah, and literally everything I said in my first answer, but on top of that, one of the things that we actually debated doing this last year, and I hope we'll complete this year, is that we've got to get more emphasis on, I mentioned that 6-year completion rate, and full admission, I did 5, okay? I wandered through college and didn't know what I was doing, and it took a while to figure that out. But there are other students that do it in 3. But we don't give any incentive for that. I got a call from a teacher in my community several years ago. His daughter was coming through undergraduate, and she finished her undergraduate degree in 3 years. She worked her tail off to get that done. And the reward we have for her in the state of Tennessee is you lose your 4th year of your Hope Scholarship. So if you want to go to graduate school in Tennessee, you want to become a doctor, a lawyer, if you wanted to pursue any number of graduate degrees in Tennessee, your 4th year of Hope Scholarship goes to someone who wants to take their time through college. That's got to change. I'm going to have a bill on that this year, and I know we have here. I know Representative Slater and Sapicki are here today. Thank you for being here, and I heard Leader Jack Johnson's name mentioned somewhere, who's a wonderful friend of mine. I hope that's something we can get done, because we've got to make sure to make what we're offering out there. I mean, look, we're one of the few states in the nation. Community colleges are free. TCATs are free. Your 4-year degree has a significant amount of scholarship help. We've got to make sure to kind of maximize all those opportunities, and then really figure out what is it that these young people primarily, but even older folks that are coming back in for the reconnect dollars that we provide. So not only are we trying to hit it on the front end, but if you're out there and you're in that job where you didn't take advantage of an educational opportunity at the beginning, we want you to re-enter that educational opportunity and maximize what you could do next in your job. So we're doing all of those things. I genuinely feel like it's got to be a little more nimble, and we've got to make sure that our community colleges, TCATs, and 4-year colleges provide those programming, just like it was said at the beginning of the slides here, that really match up with the jobs and the careers that are available here. Because we have companies that are flooding to Tennessee. We have a ton of companies from all over the country and world that are coming here, because my colleagues in the legislature and the governor have led us to a point where this is a great place to place a business or grow an existing business. We've got to figure out exactly what those jobs are that are going to be there, and then tool up for that, so that not only the opportunities are there and the funding's there, but that the jobs are there at the end of it.
Thank you. Dr. Satterfield, back to you. We know that in order for students to be successful in their careers, they must first be successful in the classroom. And I want to dive a little deeper into something we heard earlier, ramping up instruction to improve student performance. What strategies are you using in your district to support student learning, especially in the early grades, and for students who need additional support?
I think the most important thing for us is focusing on teacher quality. We all know that what makes a difference in someone's life. You know, for example, for me, the teachers that pushed me, that challenged me, I always remember those names. But the ones that didn't, I can't recall who they are. And everybody's had that same experience. So the quality of the teacher that's in the room makes all the difference in the world. So how do we retain the ones that we have, recruit the top echelon of talent into the teaching field, which means we've got to provide competitive salaries, and then we've got to have opportunities to mentor and to grow and to coach those teachers throughout their career, especially in those formative 5 to 6 years when teachers will make a decision whether they're going to stay in the profession or not. I think those are really big things. Another thing that we're doing, and we've been able to do it through ESSER funds, is the high-dose tutoring. We put high-dose tutoring in our elementary school in grades 3, 4, and 5. We really worked on the literacy pieces in the early grades, but there's a lot of data out there that from the negative effects of the pandemic that students have suffered more in mathematics. But high-dose tutoring is expensive because the ratios are 1 to 3, 1 to 4 at the max. So being really strategic about targeting which students you target, it's really good. I'll give you an example. We put that in our school. We was an early adopter. We did it all year long last year. And we put the students in high-dose tutoring that was on the fringe of being proficient. So they were non-proficient, but they were in the approaching category. We had about 110 students, and about 52 of those students became proficient in a year as the result of high-dose tutoring. So we thought that was a really big win. We did it during the school day, not before, not after school. I think those programs don't work because it's not available to all kids. But we used certified teachers during the school day so that we could target every child. And I think that made a heck of a lot of difference. The other thing I think the state is doing is their summer learning camps. And we've done that for 2 years. Again, we're targeting the students who need it the most. We've been really strategic about who we recruit to that. But the thing that we did in the concept that's important is we worked to accelerate learning. So it wasn't a remediation. So if you was a third grader and you went to summer learning camp, we don't call it summer school. We call it summer camp, and we do highly engaging activities with kids that makes them want to come every day. But in that summer learning camp, if that was a third grader who's getting ready to go to the fourth, they have a fourth grade teacher, and they are working with fourth grade content, and they are accelerating learning. And what it does is it builds a heck of a lot of confidence in that kid who needs it. So now they're going into the fourth grade, and we had a student tell us this. He said it was the first time that I started school and I didn't feel like I was behind. And I think that's huge for kids. So those are some things. And I get really emotional about it. I really get emotional about this stuff because I am the first generation. I mean, I'm one generation removed from a family of tenant farmers. So I know the power of what a quality education can do for someone.
You're here.
Thank you, Doc. Thank you. Ms. Youssef, we heard earlier that high-quality public charter schools are one important component of ensuring students have high-quality instruction in Tennessee. Can you share why you and your family chose a charter school for you and what that experience has been like for you?
When me and my family were looking for schools, of course, education was an important factor. And when it came to education, me and my parents really value high rigorous work in and outside of school. So it meant like during school hours, I was getting high quality education, and after school, they were sending me home with homework that would further my education and make sure that I practiced at home. And coming to STEM, they had many opportunities for me, whether it be advanced placement, dual enrollment, and all of these different opportunities for me to excel my education, not only for high school level, but for college readiness education, that I would see what would be expected of me when I got to college, so that when I did go to college, I wouldn't be scared and experience everything. Lots of students experience when they go to college, they get scared, especially during that first semester of college, because it's a different expectation that's put on them and the higher level of work that is expected. And due to all of these opportunities that I've had at STEM and like the advanced placement, dual enrollment, I got to see ahead of time what would be expected of me when I got to college. And now I feel confident going into college, knowing that I have had the experience to see and the privilege to see all of these expectations that would be put on there when I got there.
Thank you. Dr. Summers, when we talk about the connection between education and work as our economy continues to grow, we know that employers are a key stakeholder in growing a skilled workforce. So what information do you look to, or what data do you wish you had when designing programs of study to align with workforce needs?
Well, we've all heard the expression that the tail wagging the dog, right? So when we think about it, that employer is the one that has to make the final delivery. Whatever that product or service is, whether it's electricity or, producing the paper we're writing on, they have to have that output. So, we really have to start with the employer themselves. When the companies come in to explore a community, they're going to typically talk to ECD and the industrial development boards and these individuals. But, I had the opportunity to speak with LG Chem a couple weeks ago about what are their needs, because that's really where we need to start. The issue becomes when I'm trying to communicate what they are telling me is a need to that high school student who's not aware that that profession even exists. And how do we even convince their parent that that's something that they need to be looking at? So that transition is what's really important. I'll also say that sometimes when I'm talking to an industry, for instance, a company came to me several years back and said they were interested in some training for injection molding. Injection molding is extremely expensive. It's very big equipment, requires a lot of space, and they were only going to employ a few people, and nobody else in the community needed it. So in order to put in a program like that, you've got to have a ratio of students to support the program. But then I also have to deliver and say to those students that I'm recruiting, I have a job for each and every one of you. And so there's a mismatch there. And I think at times there needs to be some ways to offer some incredibly expensive programs for very few students when a company says, I've identified these people. So that special industry training sometimes with the employer is another area we could do a little bit more of a research into, I think.
Are there ways, that Tennessee could improve in higher education to help better prepare students to meet industry needs today?
I think going back to what Dr. Satterfield said, that high-intensity, proactive, personalized counseling is the key. So over the past few years, we have made huge investments in high-quality standards at the high schools. We are putting in programs for high-quality teaching. On my side of the house in post-secondary, we have had huge influxes of funding for increased locations, right? We're expanding into communities that have never had post-secondary. We have state-of-the-art equipment that's coming in. We are getting other types of services that are being invested in technical and community college education. So we've got this work, K-12, post-secondary, but there's that transition, that handoff. How is that happening? And I'm fortunate to be in a project called Greater Together with Austin Peay, Nashville State, and TCAT Dixon and Clarksville Montgomery County School Systems. And it's where Tennessee Achieves and SCORE have come together and helped us to find a data sharing mechanism where every student that's graduating has declared where they plan to go. And I receive a list of that. So I have this list of Clarksville Montgomery County students that says, I'm interested in TCAT Dixon And now we can go in and touch each and every individual student personally and assist them with those financial aid questions, meet with their parents, go a step further. So as we look at some work by some organizations like AIRS, where they're embedding individuals into the high school, I believe every high school should have an individual whose job is to assist with post-secondary transition, whether it's going to work, apprenticeship, college, military. How do we help them with that? And then you need a dedicated receiver on the college side for those individuals, and then we sandwich them. We come in and we literally sandwich them so there's no gap. They know where they're going, we know where they're going, and there's not a break in education where they're trying to figure out how to get to the next step. We've helped them along the way with that.
Thank you. It's clear, we have so much opportunity to support students as they make decisions about college and careers. Ms. Yosef, what are some opportunities you've had at STEM Prep to prepare you for college and career?
Like I said earlier, I've had many opportunities when it comes to education, whether it be AP classes that I've taken, which is advanced placement, and dual enrollment classes that help me prepare for the college education and the college field. And I've had opportunities such as ACT prep that have helped me boost my ACT score over +5 points, essentially. And I did that during school, after school, and we had an opportunity to do that over the summer. And essentially me getting that higher ACT score has taken off like one worry, the financial aspect, because due to my higher ACT score, I can get more money from the colleges to attend their schools, and now I have one less thing to worry about when it comes to the financial aspects, which I think that all students should have the opportunity to do, because financial income and financial problems and the idea of going to college and fearing the idea of debt is why many students veer away from going to college, and they don't know that the scholarship opportunities, and they don't have opportunities like ACT prep or taking dual classes instead of paying for them in college. And having opportunities like this for all students will help fill that gap, essentially, because you're not waiting until college to get a head start on your future education, and you have an idea and you know about all these opportunities, whether it be scholarships or certain ways like increasing your ACT score that will essentially help you pay for colleges, which I think everyone should help, which all of y'all can do, and help make that push and make sure that all these students have an opportunity to know all the opportunities that are given to them financially, whether it be classes or like ACT prep like that I've had at STEM.
Dr. Satterfield, as a dean, I value so highly a good, effective, caring teacher. I know that's important. What can the state do to recruit and retain the best teachers so that every student receives the instruction they deserve?
I had a list for that.
Okay, well, we only have a few minutes.
Okay. But I think number one we've already talked about is to offer an entry-level competitive salary. There's got to be a hook. Another thing that we're doing in our district is we have a very robust strategic compensation plan where those hard to staff, those teacher leader positions are paid additional to a normal teacher, which I think is a very positive thing with our teachers. Another thing is we have to reduce the cost barriers of going to college. We know teachers don't enter into the teaching profession to be a millionaire. They've got that figured out. So the idea is we've got to do some strategies. I think the Grow Your Own apprenticeship that UT is doing with Tennessee Workforce Development is a great idea. We're working with the EPP and trying to make that application as well. We think that's a great opportunity because it leaves kids with a full scholarship. Think about that for a minute, a full scholarship, debt-free, that they don't owe anything to be a teacher. I think that the SCORE report had one of their recommendations was to offer scholarships for students going into the teaching field, and then that they would serve in a Tennessee licensed position for a minimum of 4 years. I think that's a super idea. I don't know why we don't do things like that. And then the other thing that I think is important, that we've got to recruit our own students. You know, we're sitting here talking about what are the workforce needs. Well, the teaching profession is a workforce need. And one of the things that we're talking about at home is trying to identify students who have high aptitude for teaching, but they have low support at home, and they might be the first generation in their family to go to college. So we know a lot about those kids. We know about their behavior. We know about their attendance. We know about their grades. We know about their work ethic. And I think we need to tap in and recruit our own first and foremost, because that's an industry in itself. So those are my ideas.
It's a good list. Okay. Leader Lambert, it's all about having the right policies in place. What are the top education priorities that you expect the Tennessee General Assembly to tackle in 2023?
Well, here we sit in December, so tune in. And we go back into session in January. This is kind of the bill drafting time of the year. So for those in the room that follow the legislature closely, and for my colleagues, this is the time that you need to be reaching out to your legislators. You need to be reaching out to those that represent you and that speak for you downtown, because now's the time when they're meeting with our legal services, and that's what I'll be doing later today. I was on the phone earlier on drafting pieces of legislation. But this I can guarantee you, we're not going in reverse, okay? Through both Governor Haslam's tenure and now Governor Lee, we have invested billions of additional dollars of your money into K-12 education, into higher education. It's the second highest budget item in the Tennessee state budget, only behind TennCare. So you've got health care and education. And the money that we invest is one thing, but putting the priorities in place like we've talked about here, those are what matters, because you can throw as much money as you want at a problem and it's never going to solve it unless strategically you're allocating those resources to make sure that it's successful. So that's really the message I want to leave you, is that there's no backing up, there's no going in reverse. We are going forward, and we're going to make sure that with SCORE's help and everybody in this room and hopefully every Tennessean, and I appreciate everything that you all are doing, and young lady, good luck in the rest of your career. You've already got most of it figured out, it sounds like to me. You're in a better spot than I was at your age. But we've got to make sure that we continue to move forward. And so I think I can speak for all of my colleagues, and especially the Republican caucus. That's all we're looking for, is what's the next step? What's the next highest rung up the ladder? How do we make sure to take that next leap up? And starting in January, I'm sure we'll see a lot of that.
Thank you. One final question for each of the panelists. One sentence. What's the most important action Tennessee should pursue in the next year to put students on a stronger path from education to work? What would be the one thing?
I will say that we need the ability to use data at a practitioner level. There's a wealth of resources out there for system-wide level, looking at numbers and data and systems and trends. I need access to individual students across the 8 counties, not just the one that I'm participating in with Greater Together. I don't know how to reach a student that's interested in us if I don't know who they are.
Ms. Yusuf, any idea?
I think everyone can start by knowing their role. Like everyone in this room, y'all play a role, and y'all impact not only my education, but a bunch of other schools, a bunch of other students' educations. And if y'all can start by knowing your role in the future and these students' educations, and helping make a push to like their legislations, like you say, and make a push to make sure that all these students have these opportunities that I had, and making sure that everyone starts off on the same base, whether it be making a push for ACT prep or like tutoring, the tutoring opportunities that they provide, and it can help these students make them feel more secure into going into the workforce and getting that further education, because it's a big gap, and everyone here in this room can start by making that push.
Thank you, Doctor.
I would like to just segue off of Dr. Summers. I think that clear data system is really important. The National Clearinghouse has a data system, but it doesn't have the TCAT data. So we don't know the students who have gone to TCAT and have been retained. We need the 2- and 4-year data and the TCAP data as well. And if you've ever seen that report, it's really good. So it tells us the students who graduated and enrolled in post-secondary. It tells us who returned for the second semester, who returned for the second year, year 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6. We need that data easily accessible, and the sooner the better. So that's what I would just add, and get the TCAP results in that too. And I think they tell me that can be done. We just need to get that done.
Leader, final word.
I just think we need to make sure, again, to allocate the resources that we have in a way that supports our teachers. Every time you see a teacher, thank them for what they do. They absolutely do not get the thanks that they need. I can tell you as a parent with 2 children in public schools, if my child does something wrong at school, they are guilty until proven innocent. I back my teachers up, period. And my children know that. Thank those teachers, support those teachers, help them. And we've got to do that from the state level, the local level, all across the board to make sure they've got the support that they need. Then we've got to support our students to make sure that those resources are available to them and there's a clear pathway, again, that's multiplied. I mean, it can't be just one pathway. Every student has a pathway to success, figuring out what that is, and then making sure that we support our parents and members of the community that wish to be involved in the educational process, either as volunteers of the community coming into the school or as our parents being welcome and integrated into that. Sometimes we get a little siloed off where we think teacher, student, parent. It's all a team effort. At least it is in Portland, Tennessee, and I'm sure that is throughout Tennessee, where we've got to make sure that we leverage those resources to really allocate that and support all of those groups.
Audience, please join me in thanking our panelists this morning.
Thank you so much, Judge Gonzalez, for that panel discussion. Thank you to our panelists for your remarks. As we close this morning, I want to just acknowledge that change can be hard and uncertain. Reimagining an education system that better prepares every student for a job is easier to say, but much harder to design and implement in practice. It will require collaboration among all of the stakeholders in this room, hard work, better data use, laser vision on what's best for students. As you all know, we are eager beavers on the SCORE team, and we are excited to roll up our sleeves and work with you on this work. We believe that Tennessee has what it takes to put stakes in the ground and do the work of reimagining and redesigning so that today's students are prepared to meet the ever-changing world of tomorrow. I hope you'll join us in advocating and advancing these priorities in 2023. We certainly believe that advocacy rooted in data about how students are doing is the most important tool we can use to spotlight opportunities to improve student success. And to that end, I also want to share that today we're releasing our K-12 by the numbers website. So in your email later today, you'll receive a link that really look at some additional comprehensive K-12 data that you can use to dig into a bit more of the state of education in your local community as well. So as we close, I want to reiterate again how grateful we are to have you with us, to be in this work with you. Thank you so much, and we are adjourned.